Antes que nada, gracias por estar acá, doctor, y por acompañarnos en esta entrevista y por dar a conocer un poco más de la investigación que ha hecho sobre esta prueba de COVID, ¿no? Que ha sido muy importante a nivel, en este caso, de Estados Unidos, pero también ha sido muy relevante dentro de los estudios y de lo que el resto de personas han podido sacar y luego que han leído el artículo.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Para arrancar con la entrevista, uno de los puntos que me gustaría tocar es saber cuál es el objetivo para iniciar con la investigación de esta prueba molecular que es basada en la saliva, obviamente, ¿no? Para el SARS-CoV-2 que evita la extracción de ARN. Entonces, empecemos con eso, por favor.
So in April, I was asked by my university leadership to stand up a team to help make our campus as safe as possible for the fall with testing as a key component. We put together a team to try to come up with a good plan, and it included epidemiologists and data scientists to help us figure out how often we need to test and who we need to test. And they told us we needed to test everybody twice per week. So we have 50,000 people on our campus. So that meant we had to perform up to 100,000 tests per week. So we looked at all the different tests that were available, including some early saliva tests. But the problem is they all required the RNA isolation, which is a slow step, and it's expensive, and it's a supply chain bottleneck. And so in order to be able to test everybody twice a week, we knew we were going to have to find a better, faster, cheaper, less supply chain limited approach. So we formed a team of researchers. Many of us pooled our resources together, and my colleague Paul Hergenrother led the team. And it was Paul's idea to say, can we skip the RNA isolation and go directly from saliva to PCR, which would make it cheaper, faster, and more scalable. And the amazing team of students discovered that, in fact, yes, you can skip the RNA isolation, go straight from saliva to PCR, and this was the kind of key discovery that made it possible for us to do this on scale.
Me gustaría también saber dentro de eso, ¿no? Ya iniciaron con la investigación, pero más adelante, ¿cuáles fueron los pasos a seguir para el desarrollo de la investigación y poder sacar algunos resultados que sean positivos y por ende poder aplicar al resto de personas, en este caso a los estudiantes?
So originally we tried it on what we call spiked samples. So you can take saliva and add the RNA to see if you can detect it. And those results were very encouraging. We had a level of detection of 500 to 1,000 copies per mil, which was better than most of the other tests that out there and gave us very high confidence that this could work. Then we did an initial clinical study where we looked at 100 samples from people who received the COVID test for the nose test, and we also asked them to give saliva at the same time. And so we checked and we got very good matching for the positives and the negatives across that 100 samples, and we felt very confident that this was going to be an excellent test.
Dentro de eso estuve leyendo en el artículo que habían publicado en la universidad que había muy pocos casos dentro de esos participantes. Entonces, ¿cuál sería el siguiente paso luego de eso para poder aplicar de una manera en gran escala?
First, we had to build a lab that could do 10,000 tests per day or more. And so we partnered with our College of Veterinary Medicine because they have great expertise in testing for animals with coronaviruses. There's one of my colleagues, Lei Wang at the veterinary college, is maybe the world leader or one of the world leaders for testing coronaviruses in animals. And actually, he had tested a tiger from the Bronx Zoo in February. So you may have heard there was a tiger at the Bronx Zoo that was diagnosed with COVID. That was done here at Illinois by Lei Wang. So we worked with him and Rick Fredrickson, the director, and Tim Fan from the veterinary college. And we transformed the veterinary lab into a human COVID-19 testing facility that could do lots of testing on scale. And then we bought lots of equipment and took 4 rooms and filled them with the new instruments and the robots and hired lots of people. And we created a very powerful facility with working around the clock, 24 hours of, 8-hour shifts, 8, and the lab works all the time. And that's how we were able to do it on scale.
¿En cuánto tiempo lleva esta planificación en sí y el tiempo que se desarrolla para poder ya aplicar a las personas como tal? En sí, el tiempo que en primera se desarrolla la investigación y en segunda ya para aplicar de a poco.
So it took us about 6 weeks to discover the test, and then about 6 weeks to get it ready to deploy on scale. So total of 3 months. And we then, when our students came back at the end of August, we were ready to go.
¿Cómo ha sido ese proceso durante aplicar las primeras pruebas? ¿A qué número fue el primero que aplicaron? Porque ya regresaron los estudiantes al campus. Entonces, ¿cómo fue eso? ¿Cómo fueron distribuyendo para aplicar, digamos, el primer grupo de pruebas?
Sure. We started on a small scale before our students came back. On July 6th, I believe, we started offering it voluntarily for people who were on campus. So faculty, staff, and graduate students volunteered to get about 1,000 tests per day. So for compared to where we are now as a small scale, and we did that for 1 month, and we learned a lot. There were definitely challenges and hiccups and issues, but we kept correcting them and fixing and making it better. And by the time our students came back, we were ready.
Dentro de eso me gustaría saber cómo es la frecuencia, cómo saber la frecuencia, porque sabemos como son pruebas rápidas en este sentido, las van haciendo varias veces por semana o varias veces al mes. Entonces, ¿cómo saber la frecuencia para poder hacer, qué sé yo, 2 pruebas al mes o 3 pruebas al mes?
Twice per week for students. And we started with everybody twice per week, faculty, students, and staff. But once we learned that most of our cases were with our undergraduate students, so we started prioritizing our undergraduates. They were tested 3 times a week or twice a week, and everybody else once a week. And we kept that through most of the semester. At the end of the semester, we started to see some cases in our faculty and staff because the surrounding community was getting higher, and we started to see it coming in to our faculty and staff. So then we put everybody back on twice per week. So once or twice per week in general is where we were.
¿Cuál es el tiempo estimado en el que la prueba da el resultado?
Between 3 and 12 hours, which is really a key point. Much of the testing here in the United States, it takes 2 days or more to get your results. But the problem is that doesn't help stop the spread because you miss the window of infectiousness. Our test, you get the results back in hours, not days. And we also help people get isolated fast once we find people who are positive. That's the most important thing. It's fast and frequent testing is the key.
De lo que puedo conocer, sé que ya se han hecho alrededor de 1 millón de pruebas dentro de todo este campus. Desde el inicio, que lo hicieron en julio-agosto, que mencionó anteriormente, ¿cómo ha sido ese proceso? Y sobre todo, esa parte para confirmar que estas pruebas son efectivas y que pueden ayudar a gran escala.
Yes, we just recently completed our 1 millionth test. And right now, our 7-day positivity rate is 0.2%. We also, this semester, even though we were open, we had our classes open, our laboratories open, we continue to have our businesses open in our community. We have 0 hospitalizations, and thank goodness, no deaths. And we think this tells us it is possible. You can open safely, and we can get our kids back to school and our businesses open. If we have fast, frequent testing and good communication, we can do it. And we think that's the most important lesson we learned. It is possible. And now we're trying to share with everyone else what we did here so they can try to repeat our results in our system if they want in their local community.
Una pregunta en ese mismo tema. Dentro del 1 millón de pruebas que se han hecho aproximadamente, ¿cuántos han salido positivos? ¿Cuántos casos de COVID han salido positivos?
So we performed 1 million tests. Our total number of positive tests from the entire semester end July was about 4,400. And the most important thing is that our positivity rate was generally less than 0.5%. So I think the key is not necessarily total number of cases, but your average positivity rate, because by keeping our positivity rate very low, we also stopped the hospitalizations and we were able to stop the spread from our Illinois community to our surrounding community. And so I think the most important statistic is the positivity rate on a daily basis, which we kept less than 0.5% for the most part.
Perfecto, pasemos a otro tema y uno de los puntos que sí quisiera hacer en comparación y que nos ayude con esa explicación. Sabemos que hay muchas pruebas, por ejemplo, acá en Ecuador se aplican las pruebas rápidas que son de PCR y las pruebas de isosopado, que son una de las, digamos, que confirman de mejor manera si tienes o no tienes COVID. Entonces, ¿cuáles serían las ventajas y desventajas de las pruebas de saliva, en este caso, las que están aplicando dentro del campus de Illinois?
First is it's easy to collect. So people don't mind doing it over and over and over again. People don't like to get the nasal test many times because it can be uncomfortable. Whereas to, dribble saliva in a tube is easy. And therefore communities can just make it part of life. No big deal. I, quickly give my saliva sample and it works well. The second is that it saves the cost and avoids the supply chain bottlenecks. So to do it on large scale, you want to keep it simple and cheap. And so this is a simple, cheap test that allows you to make it possible to do it on scale. The last piece I'll just mention is our test allows you, the first step is heating the sample, which inactivates the virus. And we think breaks it open and makes it possible to measure the viral RNA. Because you heat it first, it makes it safe to do it on scale. And that's a really good thing for protecting the workers doing the test.
¿Cuánto dura la realización de esta prueba? Porque sabemos que se hacen más o menos 10,000 por día, si no me equivoco. Entonces, ¿cuánto tiempo demora en que una persona vaya y se haga este testeo?
5 minutes. And the other good thing is it doesn't require a healthcare worker to collect. So we have, 20 tents we had popped up all over campus at the beginning, and we just hired people from the community to help. So it was very practical. And again, this is very reproducible in many communities because you can pull everyone together and set this up and you don't need the healthcare workers.
Justamente iba a ese tema porque en la parte de la investigación, en el texto de investigación que estaba publicado, vi que cualquier laboratorio puede hacer este tipo de pruebas porque no tienen un costo mayor en hacerlas, ¿no? Y en producirlas. Entonces, más o menos el costo estaba en $10 para las personas que quieren hacerse esta prueba, pero ¿qué se requiere para que un laboratorio, por ejemplo, pueda adquirir en gran escala y también poder hacer este tipo de pruebas?
So the cost per test, as you point out, is about $8.50 for the reagents. That price is coming down because we made a partnership with Thermo Fisher. So the hope is that cost will come down even more. And then the cost of the lab to run it, altogether, we say the total cost for the test is about $14. So about $8 for the reagents, $14 total for running the test.
Respecto a las pruebas, sé que se han hecho muchísimas, ya 1,000,000 prácticamente dentro del campus de Illinois. La pregunta va referida, ¿cuál es el siguiente paso a corto plazo? ¿Cuál sería el siguiente objetivo? Es decir, si las van a implementar en otras universidades de Estados Unidos, en otros campus, y en sí colaborar con toda la comunidad que lo necesita realmente. Eso, a pesar de que ya hay la vacuna, ¿no? Pero para seguir abordando los casos.
We are very excited about the vaccine. Obviously, the data looks very encouraging. And I think this is going to be, the key to get us beyond COVID. The challenge is it's going to take longer than any of us would like to get the vaccine widely distributed enough so that we don't have to keep doing the testing and the masks and the distancing. And we want to help make sure we don't lose the next 6 to 8 months with education and working and all of the things. I'll pause there and then I'll keep going. So we are working very hard to help other communities replicate what we did here to help them open and stay open safely. So we've launched some organizations to help. Uh, the key one is called Shield T3. It's a university-run organization led by Bill Jackson, and he's working with now, I think, 60 universities across the country, as well as some large companies and different cities. And last week, they opened a new one in California, in Sunnyvale, and Notre Dame and Wisconsin are also up and running. And we're also starting to work with international partners. So groups from other countries, we're also trying to help them stand up the shield in other countries. And we're also now expanding to our local community. So we're working to get our first responders first. And ultimately, we want to try to share with most of Champaign-Urbana, so our local community, so we can also help keep the positivity rate low around our local community and throughout the state of Illinois. So we built now another entity called Shield Illinois, which is trying to help share the testing across the whole state. And they have 7 new labs they're about to launch, each about 10,000 tests per day. So we're hoping to have 70,000 tests per day across the state very soon.
Luego de escuchar toda la información que ha servido de mucho, sería referido a Ecuador. ¿Cuán factible es? Sabemos que Ecuador ha sido uno de los países más afectados con relación al COVID y con relación a establecer normas o protocolos de bioseguridad rápidos y eficaces. Entonces, ¿cuán factible es que en un país de América Latina, en este caso Ecuador, se puedan aplicar estas pruebas rápidas, estas pruebas de saliva?
I think it should be very doable. The cost of doing the test is much less than the cost of closing the economy. So I think we have to compare the cost of the assay and the system with the, the loss of economic growth, right? If the businesses aren't open, not to mention if we don't educate our children. So we think it's a very good investment and it's definitely doable. It's really at the end, a simple test, a simple assay. The equipment can be acquired, the reagents are available. And we also have developed an application, a digital application that is free in the US, and the Shield T3 can help make it accessible to partners in other parts of the world. And the application is easy to share. Anyone who has a phone, if we have people who have access, they can use it to get information quickly. So we think there are many parts of our system that can be replicated, and we are also very committed to help make that happen if people are interested.
Digo que la patente de esta prueba, si es que la llamamos patente, está libre de forma gratuita para poder implementarla en otros países.
Yes, and in fact, Shield T3 is built to help. So if people are interested, they can contact Shield T3 and they will work with you. So they're working with several other countries right now to help them bring the platform to their country. And they can do that for anyone who is interested. So the person to contact would be Bill Jackson at Shield T3. And if you go to the website, they have a website now, shieldt3.com, and they show how to do it and all the services they offer. And again, we are a land grant institution. So our mission is to serve the public good. So this company is set up to try to help as many people as possible. And we're passionately committed to doing that.
Para ir cerrando la entrevista, ¿hasta cuándo va a estar presente esta prueba? ¿Va a estar de largo hasta que finalice todo lo del COVID? ¿Va a quedar esto después ya para un estudio más adelante o cuál va a ser el objetivo?
So we anticipate probably for the next at least 6 to 8 months, maybe even 1 year, we will plan to continue testing because we want to help bridge to the widespread vaccine as safely as possible. Our plan is to help anyone else who wants to do it also during that time to also do it. And we hope that after 1 year, we won't need it anymore. And then we will stop. Right now, we are in active discussions to try to help test the vaccine to see if we can help show whether it stops the transmission. Because we have lots of testing, we are a good opportunity to help answer that question. So we're in discussions to try to see if we can help do the scientific studies to understand whether the vaccine can stop the transmission.
Yo le agradezco de antemano, doctor, por presentar toda la información y por dar a conocer a toda la colectividad sobre esta investigación que ha sido muy buena y se ha podido salvar muchas vidas y también diagnosticar a muchas o millones de personas en esto. Puedo decirle que Ecuador estará satisfecho con este resultado, pero también que espero y aspiro que las autoridades dentro de la salud pública del país puedan ver esta entrevista y puedan nutrirse un poco más. Y quién sabe, acá se retorna a clases el 18 de enero, entonces vamos a ver qué pasa. Esperemos que acá también se pueda aplicar o se pueda hacer ese plan para ir, digamos, activando un poco más la educación, ya que todo ha sido virtual. Entonces sí es necesario que muchas comunidades aquí en Ecuador puedan también volver a clases y mediante estas pruebas de salida, pues se pueda ayudar a millones de estudiantes, ya sea de primaria, secundaria o universidad.
Okay, and I would say thank you so much for having me on. And I also hope that this approach can be helpful. And I also wish health and safety to everyone in Ecuador. And obviously, we've all been through a very tough time this year. And COVID is a really challenging time for all of us. I'm hopeful that we will emerge as a world stronger and more united as we go through this hard time together.